Hello. Welcome. My name is Paloma Lopez. I'm the Education Manager at the Indian Arts Research Center here at the School for Advanced Research. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for everybody tuning in on our YouTube channel. Since we have two speakers today, I will ask that you hold any questions you have until they've both had the chance to present. We are so excited to be able to hear from this year's Anne Ray interns, Alex and Olivera, and learn a little bit about what they've been up to over the past 8 months. Alex and Oli have been an incredible addition to the IARC team this year, and we are so grateful for the thoughtfulness, creativity, and joy that they brought to everything that they took on. And we consider ourselves lucky to be just a small part of the amazing careers that they have ahead of them. We'll definitely miss having them on campus, but are super excited to see what comes next for them. So we're going to start today with Alex. Before coming to SAR, Alexandria Hawley completed her Masters of Arts in Museum and Cultural Heritage at the University of Auckland. While in New Zealand, Alex cared for Native belongings, or taonga, at the Auckland War Memorial Museum and served as the Education Outreach Coordinator for the Wharekura Cultural Center on the Waitemata Harbor. After spending so much time abroad as a Fulbright graduate awardee, Alex was excited for the opportunity to return home to New Mexico to continue her journey as a museum professional, and we were lucky to have her choose us as the next step in that journey. In her application, Alex expressed her views of the museum as a space for connecting with and learning from the treasures and knowledges left to us by our ancestors. While in residence, Alex has certainly helped us do our best to be such a space. So please join me in welcoming Alexandria Hawley.
Hi, hello. I'm just gonna lower this. I hope my face is. Hi everyone, thank you for coming. Yat she'e Alex Yineshia, Kia Ani Nishla Bilagana Bashishchin, Tova Hedashiche Bilagana Dashit Nali. My name is Alex, and I have just introduced myself in Diné Bizad, or Navajo language. And if there are any relatives in the audience, I look forward to connecting with you after this talk today. Just catch my breath. I am going to be speaking about my experiences this year, specifically my curatorial experience while in Santa Fe, that I am just now seeing the closing of throughout this month. So this is the first of many exciting events in the coming weeks. I completed my undergraduate education at Dartmouth College, where I received my Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology and Native American Studies. And I was also a Mellon Mays undergraduate fellow at the time, which really shaped my sort of scholastic trajectory. And then I continued on a few years later. I received a Fulbright Fellowship to pursue a Master of Arts degree in Museums and Cultural Heritage at Waipapataumatorau, Auckland Museum, or I'm sorry, Auckland, the University of Auckland. Yes, and I just wrapped that degree up and came straight here, and I'll be returning to Auckland in September for my graduation ceremony. While in Auckland, I was also a teaching assistant in the art history department. As Paloma said, I worked part-time at Te Wharekura Cultural Center on Te Waitemata Harbor in Auckland. And I completed my Master of Arts Research and Writing at Auckland War Memorial Museum, Tamaki Paingahira. And I worked with the bead and quill work, 19th century floral bead and quill work in their collection there, and just felt very honored to be in that space. The photo here, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I skipped ahead. So this is just so I skipped a little bit of ahead, but this is just my friends and I at our graduation ceremony at Dartmouth. It was really a special time to connect with other emerging Native students that are doing really important work in their communities. So just want to acknowledge just the women that shaped my time while in my undergraduate studies. And then the far photo it was taken at the United States Embassy in Wellington, New Zealand, where we had our closing sort of ceremony and reception with Ambassador Udall and his wife. And it was really exciting. Jill Udall is an enthusiast of Indigenous art, and so this Cara Romero piece behind me was really exciting to connect with. There was sort of a private curated collection of North American and Maori art in the embassy. So it was a full circle moment when I returned to Santa Fe because this Carol Romero piece was on display at the Wheelwright Museum, which I will speak about a little bit later, but I did spend a good amount of my time there. So I just want to give you a little bit of background where I'm coming from in my museum work. My maternal family is from Shiprock, New Mexico. I was born and raised outside of Ogden, Utah. And these photos just sort of encompass, I guess, my view, my world. So this top photo is my great-grandmother, Bertha Lee, who I might just have to acknowledge her and move forward because I might get emotional. This bottom image is actually from a dye workshop that I did online with the Teller sisters. So Barbara Teller Ornelas and Linda Teller Pete did an online course with the Heard Museum in 2021. And that was the first time I had experimented with natural dyes. And this was taken in 2021, I want to say, this photo. And then just across in that top corner is my niece participating in sort of that experimentation, and just is a good, I think, solid representation of what weaving is and what it means to me. This middle photo is my little grandma, my grandmother's little sister, who is showing me how to warp. This is the first time I had warped a rug, and we were just sitting there and I asked, how do you warp a rug? And this was the only loom we had. This is, it's really big for the size of rug we're doing, but I just wanted to know the process front to back. So 2017 was the first time I had strung up a loom. And then fast forward to this past fall with Linda Teller Pete in her artist studio. She was the King Fellow, I believe, and artist in residence here at SAR. And it was really just a blessing and a pleasure to weave in her space and to have access to her. That it was a huge highlight of my time here to be together with Linda and Belvin. So ihiahe to both of them. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be speaking a bit about my curatorial experience. So I chose to do textiles for several reasons. Some of them maybe are evident now. Pictorials in particular, because that is just what the women in my family have leaned into weaving, at least in our memory as such. So my mom, when I started experimenting with weaving, I learned a lot about my family that I had no idea about, and this was in my 20s. And when you're a kid, you ask questions and you learn pretty quickly what not to ask. And that some questions are kind of hard. And I had accepted that, and that's okay, and that's not bad. But it was very noticeable when I started weaving and engaging with Diné textiles. A lot of memories came forward that I had never heard before. A lot of, my mom was sharing memories, my grandma was sharing memories. And one of those my mom likes to always mention is that my great-grandmother would often weave wedding gifts for young couples with their family names on it, sort of within that design. And I think in general, pictorial textiles don't always get that kind of recognition or attention. And so this project was sort of a way to honor these textiles, sort of a love letter. And also to honor the women in my family that weave in this way. So these are two that are in the exhibition. I included the one with initials as sort of a nod to my great-grandmother, and then this is a pictorial of Shiprock, which is where my family comes from. Let's see. And so I had titled this exhibition, which will be online, forthcoming, The Southwest Diaries. And as I've mentioned, it really is to honor this practice of pictorial weaving and really recognizing that it is a manifestation of a woman, the weaver's world that is around her is very thought out, right? Incredibly thought out, and takes a lot of time to bring these images to life. So it really does speak to who they are and what, the context is around them at this time. And this pictorial is so fabulous, and I love that there is a lot of references to home and just layered ways of being. So another reason why I chose to focus on textiles is because they require a lot of work. They require a lot of time and attention and care, and that's not a bad thing, but they do require that sort of focused attention that isn't always feasible in the museum, right? They take up space. Many have been treated with harmful chemicals such as arsenic, and so we have to be very careful about cross-contamination. So they take a long time just to bring out, just to bring out of storage, just to unroll. And so when we were selecting our curatorial sort of focus for the online exhibition project, I knew I wanted to do all textiles because I could maximize the amount of textiles that I would be able to unroll and interact with and get some fresh photos of, which also you can imagine is difficult. So unless there's a focused reason, time can go by before this happens. So these are just some other featured textiles, all for the most part from that turn of the century and then into the mid 20th century. And I also would like to point out that, right, we have artists once known for the majority of these textiles that you'll notice in the exhibition. And I think, that's another reason why I wanted to shine attention on the skill of their maker, because they are unnamed, and that is just the reality of the textile trade. So really it is a love letter, and I'm very excited for you all to read more about it, and I hope you enjoy the online exhibition. So shifting into sort of some other curatorial work that we've been up to, Olivera and I had the NRA interns are responsible for a fresh installation in the vault space at the Indian Arts Research Center. So we had curated and titled an exhibition across the two vaults, so taking place in two pedestals in Vault 1 and the painting bays upstairs, and then in Vault 2 there is one basket pedestal in that space. So the inspiration really started with the ceramic figures that you see in the back here, who are all, I should mention, all of the women artists in this exhibition are named, because I was thinking a lot about names, thinking a lot about women's work, and we're sort of working with these really beautiful figures, and we thought, oh, what if we do an exhibition of named women artists? And so that's really what shaped these pedestals and painting displays. So anyway, we started with these 5 figures. The Muses is the name of their pedestal in the back there. And then right here we have a jewelry pedestal. And we selected jewelry, again, as an act of care, because if you haven't been in the Indian Arts Research Center vaults, the jewelry space is sort of isolated from the rest of the open storage collection. And so they just don't get to be socialized quite as much as other, other collection, relatives in the collection. So we have a really spectacular selection, if I do say so myself, of jewelry on display for visitors to appreciate. And then upstairs we have paintings by women artists, all depicting women going about their day, whether that's tending to family, making pottery, working in ceremony. So just really shining a light on the value of a woman's time and of her presence in her community. So we are both very proud of this and very excited for you all to see it. I hope you get a chance to. And then in Vault 2, we chose, the first time I think both of us saw this basket, we thought, this is the one. So this beautiful bingo basket is by Linda Aguilar, who is a Chumash basket weaver and a former artist in residence here. And this was really a tribute to my, I saw this basket and I thought of my grandmas, I thought of my aunties, and I I felt if they were to see this in person, they would just get a kick out of it. So it was fun to select this work, and we had entitled this pedestal Girls' Night Out. And really, really wonderful to see her sort of spread out in her display way. So I also, as part of the Anne Ray internship, I did spend 1 day a week at the Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian. I feel very grateful to have been taken under the wing of Hadley Jensen and Will Wrightingham, who are the two curators at the museum now. And I was incredibly honored to support them in their development of the Echoes exhibition, which is still on view now through June 8th. And really a wonderful display of contemporary Native American art. So I would encourage you to stop by and check out that exhibition. And I have also been just very honored to work on an additional upcoming exhibition with Marwin Begay, who is a master Diné printmaker, and his work will be on view in June, so maybe if you time it right. And so just feel very honored and grateful to have been included in these projects and to learn from Hadley and Will. And maybe not finally, but I do just want to mention with all of my spare time, I have been serving as a co-curator on this side with Isabella Robbins, who is a Diné scholar and also the current Lamont Fellow here at the School for Advanced Research. So we've been co-curating this exhibition for the Institute of American Indian Arts. And this will be for a group exhibition for the 2025 Master of Arts in Studio Arts thesis exhibition. This opens May 16th at 5 o'clock, and you're all invited. You're all welcome to join us and just visit with some really incredible and spectacular work. This photo is from their activation at the Venice Biennale, where Jeffrey Gibson, a former SAR Artist Fellow, invited the 2025 MFA class to come and be a part of that Venice activation, which is very incredible. So it is an honor to work with these artists and to be a part of this project. I'd like to mention that Kathleen Wall, one of our board members, is in this exhibition, so please join us. And I do just want to really acknowledge and thank the women that really shaped my time while in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I did many things, right, while I was there for my sort of 2-year study, one of which, as I mentioned, I was at Auckland War Memorial Museum. That is where I completed my research. And so this is myself and Ann Tozer here in the top corner, who was the collections manager at the time. I worked closely with Anne. I saw her every Friday, so I do think of her, as well as Andrea Lowe, who is the world's curator, which included the North American taonga, or relatives of materials in their collection. So really ngā mihi to both of these women for really welcoming me, and really just, I was so surprised by the amount of access, and I think this is really where my standards kind of came a little higher in terms of Indigenous engagement in museum institutions and collecting institutions. So I'm very grateful to these women. And then here in this corner is myself and Dr. Nganino Ellis, who is the professor in the art history department, and who I also served as a teaching assistant for. And this is actually just a week or two before my departure. She had a really wonderful dinner with her family. And just really, I've been, really thinking about these women as I come to a close with my time here. And then here in the middle is Dr. Linda Tyler, also professor at the University of Auckland. And she was the course convener for the Museums and Cultural Heritage Program. And this is actually us on our way to the Auckland airport at the end of I had turned in my thesis and I was on my way out. So I'm really grateful that we got this photo together. And then in this top corner, I was in Wananga with a lot of really beautiful, wonderful women, but I didn't get photos with everyone. But this is Dr. Hinekura Smith. She is a weaver and a scholar, and her research and writing has really just shaped my thinking around sort of weaving as a pedagogical practice, really. So you can look her up and check out that article. But I met her actually through the Fulbright program. She had just been awarded while I was there, so we overlapped briefly before she took off to study in Washington State and Hawaii, where she did a bit of weaving exchange and learning there. But she really welcomed myself and several of other Native American students to learn fatu weaving with her. So from plant to fiber, we did the whole process, and it was just very special and a privilege, and really that is how I spent my weekends. So it really did shape a lot of my experience and my thinking. So very grateful to Faye Hinekura, and I also want to acknowledge Faye Kim, who is not, I don't have a photo with her, but I'll have to change that. But just really grateful to sort of the way my thinking about kinship within the museum and beyond the museum was shaped in unexpected ways while I was in Aotearoa. And so this is for fun. This is just a little bit of a look back at my time. So this is myself here in the right, myself and Linda Teller P. at the Wheelwright Museum of the American Indian. We are going through their collection of single rug dress panels because if you didn't know, while Linda was here, she was working to identify with the intention of one day reuniting single rug dress panels that had been separated at some point in their exchange and trade. And so she's really on a mission to identify these textiles. So if anyone has any leads on some single panel textiles, reach out to us. But she's just measuring my height because we came across what we thought was a single panel, and I believe maybe it was not. Maybe it was just fashioned to look that way, and that was because it was very, very tall, just a very big rug dress panel. So she's measuring me here, and we're laughing about it. This middle photo is Harley. I'm sorry to you if you didn't get to meet him, but he really shaped, it was really wonderful to have him here with me. He stayed with my parents while I was overseas, so I just felt so at home to have him here in New Mexico, and he was born in Shiprock, so he took to SAR's campus like it was home, and he really made my experience here just wonderful, and I hope he made yours as well. And then this far photo was taken on Indigenous Peoples Day at the Santa Fe Plaza. We were in line for Indian tacos, Olivera and I, and just it was exciting every day. It was such a blessing to be home and in New Mexico after spending so much time away. So just very grateful for the experiences here, and very grateful for your time and for letting me share. So thank you. You can follow along with me. You can follow me on Instagram, or you can email me and we can exchange personal emails if you're curious about my studies or my work. And I will be leaving SAR to pursue a Native American fellowship that I've been awarded at the Peabody Essex Museum. So I'll be there for 9 weeks over the summer, and very excited to get to know their collections and see where we go. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, so we're just going to move right along to Olivera. Olivera Masters came to us last September, fresh off receiving her Master of Science in Anthropology with a concentration in archaeology from the University of Utah in Salt Lake. Prior to coming to SAR, Olivera was a Science Communication Fellow at the Natural History Museum of Utah, where she had the opportunity to work on the Native American Voices Initiative project. As part of her master's thesis, Olivera focused on patron experiences in Native American-based museum exhibits. Part of her interest in the Anne Ray internship was to gain additional experience working with communities and native collections. She said that she thought the internship would make her a better museum professional and archaeologist by providing training beyond what traditional academic research can offer. And I hope that that's what we've been able to provide for her over the course of her internship. So without further ado, please welcome Olivera Masters.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I think I'm gonna, presentation. Oh, lovely. As Paloma mentioned, my name is Olivera Masters, and along with Alex, I have been the other Anne Ray intern here since September. So just to start off a little bit, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Mexican-Japanese. My mom is from Mexico, and my dad is Japanese. And growing up in a multicultural household, I think has really shaped me to become interested in how other people live their lives, how they themselves combine culture and their ethnicities into their own lives and into their practice. And so I think it always made me really interested in people ever since I was really little. And so I think anthropology was a very natural progression for something for me to study, is because anthropologists like studying humans, and that's what I do. And so we participate in traditional practices a lot of the time. These are pictures from Obon, which in the States, we tend to celebrate it in July, but it follows a lunar calendar, so it usually will end up being kind of mid-August when they celebrate in Japan, but usually like cultural centers in the States will celebrate it earlier so everyone can go home, because it's a really important holiday that you welcome the spirits of your ancestors back into your homes, and you commune with them. And so we dance to celebrate our ancestors. And I get to wear my yukata, my cotton dress that I wear is from my grandma that I get to wear. And then my aunt is with me in this photo, and then her daughter, my little cousin Violet, who I think is going to be the best dancer out of us all. One day. She's very strict about practicing, and she's always very insistent that we have to practice every year, which is very cute. And then you see my mom in the middle with little Violet. My mom dances folklorico. She has ever since she was really little. At one time, I think she could dance every single dance from every state in Mexico, which is incredibly impressive. And she also makes her own costumes. She makes her own dresses. So she made that top, which is really awesome. And she's made some other dance costumes that she wears. And she's fabulous, and I hope to be like her one day. So it's a little bit of who I am and where I'm coming from, to kind of offer some context of who I am as a person, and how I kind of see the world as well. So continuing on a little bit, I, like Paloma mentioned, am an archaeologist. The person who introduced me to archaeology was my dad. We were driving back from a trip from Arizona when I was little, and we stopped at Sunset Crater, State Park, I think is what it is. And I was actually very grumpy in this photo and very begrudgingly had my photo taken. But at Sunset Crater at the time, they were doing excavations. I don't know who or what university or where they were doing it, but the park ranger who was there was showing us around and telling us about these excavations that were happening. And I thought it was the absolute coolest thing in the world. My mind was absolutely blown. And I was like, you can do this for a job? I was like, whoa. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I have a very vivid memory of there are some of the ventilation shafts that are still functional. So they're shafts that are dig really, really deep into the ground. And once a breeze comes through one end, a cool breeze will come out the other end. So it acts as a natural air conditioning. And it was so, so, so hot that day. And then I felt that breeze. And I have a very, very vivid memory of that. And I think that was the moment when I was like, I wanted to be an archaeologist. But then fast forward, or actually backtrack a little bit, to the person who introduced me to museums and collections was actually my mom. So my mom relayed the story. I don't actually remember it, but she said that I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. we lived really close to the university. And if you know the campus at all, there's President's Circle, and at long time ago, about 10, almost 15 years ago, the Natural History Museum was at the bottom of campus. It was really accessible right there at President's Circle. And my mom would push me up in the stroller to go visit the museum. So one time when we were at the museum, one of the docents was showing us around and saying, oh, what we have on exhibit is only like 10% of what is actually in the collections. Like there's so much more in the basement. At the time, everything was in the really kind of musty basement there. And I was like, okay, well then like show me. Like, why aren't we going? I want to see. And she was like, that's not for little girls like you. And I got upset. And my mom had to drag me away because I was upset. And I was like, show me what you were telling me. You can't just tell me and not show me. And then fast forward to the tail end of my undergraduate career at the University of Utah is that I got a job working in collections at the Natural History Museum. And I was one of, I think, 5, maybe 10 people who had access, who had the privilege of having access to the collection space there. And so I felt like I really vindicated. I was like, I showed her that whoever that is. And so, yeah, I've loved archaeology, yeah, for a long time. And it was since this picture, it's fun to have a picture of the moment when I decided to be an archaeologist. And now I'm here as an archaeologist. But I also like working in collection spaces. So something that I've done is kind of work the two together in my practice. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But I've done lots of field work throughout time. And I think people have a really stereotypical idea of what field work is. So our most famous archaeologist, or most well-known archaeologist, right, however notorious, is Indiana Jones, right? So you have this idea in like media about what archaeology is, which is actually a very colonial way of thinking of archaeology, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the real field experience is quite different. This is my friend Kunsang. I did my field work in southern Peru in the Sama Valley, just a stone's throw away from Chile. And what it's really like is actually just writing lines on very, very fancy specific grid paper, and you have to be very meticulous about it all. It's exciting, but not as exciting as I think media portrays it to be. And so there's this idea that another very famous line from Indiana Jones is that, if you've seen the movies, which are fun movies, I'll admit, but is that he's like, this belongs in a museum, right? This is from the last movie. But then as I was going through the end of my, I think like throughout the entirety of my undergraduate career, and then leading into deciding to get a master's degree, I was thinking like, do these items that we have in the collections, do they actually belong in museums? And so it was with this thought that I was working during my gap year and trying to kind of figure out and reconcile being an archaeologist, enjoying being an archaeologist, but trying to figure out kind of, is there more and what more could there be? And so it was with this that I was able to actually start, like Paloma said, working as one of the graduate students for the Native American Voices Initiative, which was an NEH-funded grant that allowed us to have funds to bring in Native American consultants to NHMU from all over Utah, the Great Basin, and even the Southwest. And so it was during this time that I really enjoyed working directly with these individuals, is that I got to know them, and we got to have that time to better understand the collections that were housed at the Natural History Museum. So we asked various questions like, is it appropriate to have these items? Do you know anything about how these items were made? Who made them? Et cetera. And then how can we update our digital database so that we can have better records about what's housed here, so that if other researchers, if other community members or other academic researchers want to come, we have a better idea of what's here. And then also we even asked, are there any pieces that we shouldn't have that have kind of slipped through the cracks of NAGPRA, which I think many of you in the audience are familiar with, which is the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, which was passed in 1990. And even 30 years later, many institutions are still not complete or up to date. And things have fallen through the cracks a lot of the time. And there was actually an instance where some community members told us that some items needed to start the process for repatriation. And so it was really great to be a part of that. And to become friends with a lot of these people. The person on the very end, IARC Coffee, actually he's a Flint Napper. He's Paiute and Shoshone, and he has come out with my lab mates and I a few times to do field work. And it's awesome to have a Flint Napper when you're out doing field work, because he can answer so many questions when you're in the field, finding projectile points and debitage. And so I've learned a lot from him. And so it was a really great experience to have, and it really shaped kind of what I wanted to do in the long term. I still want to continue to be an archaeologist, but I knew that there was more that I could do, that there was more engagement that I could make the effort to have happen in these spaces, because I think for a really long time, none of that engagement was happening. Archaeology was happening through, and has been happening through, a very colonial lens. And when we take the time to write grants, to have the money, to be able to do these activities and have these consultations, we can have really meaningful conversations. And so that's something that I really realized that I wanted to be a bigger part of. And so it was actually during my master's degree in 2023 that the SEMNAC document, the Standards for Museums with Native American Collections document, came out of here, of the School for Advanced Research. And it was a really big deal. I was actually talking to Paloma about it today, and that we were talking about it a lot. And maybe it was my circle of like archaeologists and museum professionals who were getting really, really excited about having more guidelines and more direction on how to do the things that we wanted to try to do and that we're trying to do. And that was my first introduction, actually, to the School for Advanced Research. And when I got my own copy, I read it, and it was really, really helpful. And I wish that it had come out a year earlier, so that we would have been able to, I think, be more effective and more intentional in the consultation process that we did at NHMU. And so, sorry, excuse me. And so after that, I actually had a friend who was from New Mexico, who knew about the School for Advanced Research, and who knew about the Ayn Rand internship, encouraged me to apply for the internship. And I kept putting it off, and I didn't want to apply. I said, I'll apply next year, like, it's fine, I got a lot going on. And she peer pressured me in the best kind of way to apply. She would text me, and every time she saw me at my desk at school, she would say, "Hey, have you applied yet? I can read your application. I can proofread it for you. Are you gonna apply? The deadline's this day. You're gonna apply, right?" And I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll apply." And it was in like the last week that I like got all of my things together, my materials, my letters of recommendation, and I changed my entire application actually like the day before it was due, and submitted. And thankfully I did. I think I made some good changes, hopefully, right? It worked. I'm here. And I'm grateful for that positive peer pressure that I had from my friend to end up being here and being able to engage with those who are here at the Indian Arts Research Center and work with Alex. I've learned a lot from her. It's nice, we also live right next to each other, and so Harley would come and visit. I'd see him trot by my door all the time. And it's been really, really good to be here. And another really good thing about being here is that I got to see how collection reviews happened. So how they were happening in the place where all of those guidelines were coming out of. And so we had the collection review. It was really soon after we had gotten here. It was like the first week that we were here, and I had actually gotten sick, and I was getting over a really, really bad cold, or the flu. And so I don't remember most of the collection review because I was there in body only. But from what I do remember after being sick was absolutely fabulous. And I really enjoyed being able to see how also trusting the community members were with the IARC staff. And that, I think, was because I think there's a sort of, I don't know, prestige, but also it comes with, working with an institution that's well known, but it's more down to the care that everybody who works at the IARC has. And so it's the years of effort, it's the years of when invited to feast days going. It's when, when they're emailed, people are, staff are emailing them back. And staff here are willing and so ready to be able to allow community members into the space without reservation and allowing, cultural practices to happen. I know so many institutions and so many collections people who are so afraid of having anything that's not archival and anything like that in the spaces, that it hinders community members from feeling welcome in spaces. And so being here and seeing it firsthand and seeing how to truly engage in more than a professional way, but even in a personal way with these people, and how that can help benefit both parties. How it can help benefit the community in making sure that pieces, relatives that need to go home can go home. And also it benefits institutions, and it's benefited the IARC in having better collection records. Also even, having relationships with communities and receiving, donations and pieces, right? And so from individuals. And that's something that also happened through the consultation process at NHMU. I think a lot of people are really afraid of doing these consultations because there's this idea of losing something that's not yours, which is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. And if you want to talk about it, find me later. But there's this whole idea of loss of something that's not yours, that you're not meant to have. But I've been fortunate enough to work with individuals who are on a different spectrum, who think very, very differently, and the practice that they do is very different as well. And so the collection reviews, the first one, so right now, this is a picture from Zio Pueblo, and so that's been going on currently, but also just to emphasize the kind of not scope, but just the time and effort that it takes to do these projects, is that the first community that IARC consulted with was Zuni Pueblo, and that took 8 years. And so, which is a really long time, right? But that means, so it was 8 years of back and forth, of giving everybody time and space and going systematically through every single piece that was attributed to Zuni Pueblo. And so that's what the IARC does for every single consultation that's happening. And that's something that I wish with my whole heart could happen in so many of the places that I've been to and the places that I've worked. But it does take time and it does take money. And it's also a testament to the priorities of the Indian Arts Research Center that they do put in that time and effort to write those grants so that the community members can be compensated for their time and their travel, that we can provide meals for those who are traveling, and for everybody to commune together, right? And to be able to build these to build community and to be able to build these relationships that go beyond anything that's professional. And so I'm really grateful that I have had a chance to be a part of that, because I think it's been a really good blueprint for the practice that I want to take forth in the work that I do in the future. And so a little bit about that. These are some pictures. The first one is from when I graduated with my undergraduate in 2021, where I did at the University of Utah, and then I did my master's there as well, and I just graduated. And future things for me are I have been actually accepted as a PhD student at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. So I'm just going, thank you. And I'm very excited. I'm excited to work with the people. I'm excited for Carrie Schlecher for her being able to accept me and to put in the time and effort to want to work with me. And I'm excited to stick around New Mexico. I've really enjoyed it. And I've liked it so far, and I'm glad that I'll be able to stay also close to SAR and hopefully continue to work with the wonderful people here who've taught me so much. And a little bit about what I hope to do with my PhD, what I want to research is I'm interested in early ceramic pieces. I'm interested in how agriculture influence production of ceramic technology, and kind of the choices that people make in time and effort into making certain pieces. So like is it worth certain time to go out and forage for, go to clay sources and to process clay, make ceramic pieces, and the functionality of those pieces in cooking food, and how the rise of agriculture in the American Southwest and the transition and the dependence on agriculture influences technology production, and then the choices that people are making in what technology is best suited for them and their situation. So UNM was kind of the perfect place to go in the Southwest, looking at agriculture and ceramics. So I'm really excited to work with all the folks down there, and to hopefully wear the fancy robes one day. That I looked up the price, and they're very expensive. So I'll have to start saving now for that. But all in all, the time that I've had here, and also the other museum and collection spaces that I've worked in, has taught me that this is really where I want to be. I really enjoy working in these spaces and having the flexibility to work with community members, to be able to engage also with non-native people, with the public. This is a picture of my little cousin, the one that you saw in her yukata earlier, and my mom when they came to visit for Christmas. And her mind was blown when she came into the collection space, and being able to have education pieces that she could handle and that she could touch. She was just like, really, I can touch it? And to be able to see that and to provide those types of experiences for anybody of any age, of any background, I think only collections and museum spaces can give me that opportunity. And so that's something that has really been solidified while I've been here, and to be able to have the privilege to work so closely with items that were created with such care, and to be able to provide long-term care for them as well, is really humbling too. And I really feel, not the pressure, but I feel the weight of caring for pieces that aren't from my own culture, but that are from somebody else's culture that mean so much to other people, as I would want, pieces from my culture and my family cared for. And so I'm grateful to be able to work in the spaces, and I showed that docent that I can have that, the space was for somebody like me. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. And that's where I leave you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. Wonderful presentations. And I'd like to open the floor to questions. Does anybody have questions for Alex or Olivera? Yes.
Well, there's a lot of hope for the future. Thank you. This is wonderful. My question is about a professional organization of those institutions that hold Native American objects. Is there a professional organization of those museums? Do they gather? Do they communicate? Do they have a newsletter? Do they have a conference?
That's a great question, and yes. There are multiple museum and collection organizations. Alex and I were actually able to attend the ATOM conference. I can never remember what all the letters stand.
Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums.
There you go. The A always gets me for association. I can never remember. So yeah, so there's ATOM. We were actually able to attend that conference in sunny Palm Springs this last fall. And they do a lot of work, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, and it's a great place for people who are working in institutions like the Indian Arts Research Center, like the School for Advanced Research, that they get to go and present about projects that they've been working on and learn from others as well. There's also the American AAMs, is American Association of Museums, that is another national museum organization that does a lot of work, and they collaborated with the SEMNAC document was made with the standards of AAM, and so museum and collection accreditation comes through them. And then there's always, state and local organizations, and NMAM here, or I participated in the Utah Museum Association while in Utah. So,
Thank you. Do we have other questions? I have a couple questions, so I'll just jump in. Question for you, Alex. I mentioned when I first saw your PowerPoint how sort of surprised I was by how much curation actually you were able to do this year. And I was wondering, were you on this path when you started the internship? Is this something you hoped to explore? Has your relationship with curation sort of changed due to the internship?
Yeah, that is a very good question. I think I was fortunate to sort of be, I worked closely, as I mentioned, with Andrea Lau at Auckland War Memorial Museum, and that was the first time that someone had asked me to the photos in my previous slideshow were actually of a community day where for Indigenous Peoples Day in November, they had me select pieces for people to come into the collection space and visit with. And that was it. I just got such a joy out of choosing who, and also letting people know, maybe that one maybe shouldn't be seen by anybody. Which you don't know if you are completely outside of the context. So that really was the beginning of me getting excited. I have always been excited about research and writing and very creative in that way. And so that part of the curatorial process is what I really enjoy. But that being said, for me, it comes from a place of care, and so that operates in the collection space and also in how you socialize your collections, right? And so that's with contemporary and historic artwork. What is the quality of life that they have? Are they getting to engage with people? Were they made to engage? Were they made to socialize? So that's really where my curatorial agenda stems from, is certainly from this place of this place of care and investment in their lived experience, I guess, which I find sits well in collections and also in curatorial work. So, but it was certainly, Santa Fe definitely opened the doors, and I too was surprised by how much curation I ended up doing just in the 9 months that I've been here. So,
thank you. And then for Olivera, I was wondering, because Alex mentioned sort of the 1 day a week she spent at the Wheelwright, if you would mind sharing a little bit about what you were doing this semester.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't mention it in my presentation, but every Tuesday I've been actually at the Center for New Mexico Archaeology. I always joke that as an archaeologist, I like hanging out with rocks a lot, and so that's what I get to do at CNMA. So I have been able to help with a few different projects that they do, and if you're not familiar with CNMA, they are the state repository for New Mexico. And so what that means, any repository, so they're the archaeological repository also, there's a distinction sometimes between historic repositories and archaeological repositories, is that any project, any fieldwork, excavations that's happening on state or federal land, anything that's been collected from those projects goes to then live at CNMA. And so each of the state and federal agencies, the BLM, BOR, BIA, all of these, there are also projects from LANL, from the National Laboratories in Los Alamos, that are housed there. And so what has to happen, for organization, is that we get to catalog everything. So I get to look through and count how many projectile points there are, or what's all debitage is there, what ceramic sherds are there, or if it's historic pieces, how many cans, which some people get really excited about. I don't, but I respect the people who do. We catalog it and then make sure that all that information is stored in a digital database, and then it lives there and it's accessible to, again, communities, but also academic researchers as well. And then CNMA also is working with communities to make sure that repatriations can also happen with the appropriate items that shouldn't be there, and ancestors, so that they can go back home. So that's what I've been doing.
Thank you. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions from the audience, I think we can just say one more thank you to Alex and Oli. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you.